Because now I'm doubting myself.
You're looking at the ghost on our ring. You guys decide if it's a ghost or not. This is from Friday morning. You see it? There it is.
Is that a spider or what is that?
Oh.
That's some kind of insect.
It's really far. It's not like close.
But like, what is it?
I don't know. That's why I'm showing you so you guys can figure it out. Because if it's a spider web, then I want to know how that spider web got like that 10 or 15 feet across there, because it's pretty far. Let me play it again. I think it stopped. Oh, it's almost done. So the only thing I can think of is we were up, and so right beside this porch is the kitchen window, and my husband had like turned on the lights, and not be, so I got the notification from the ring, and then he turned on the lights. Because so you can tell I was already kind of watching it before it started. So I'm not sure if it's some sort of reflection out of that kitchen window, but it seems way far away and it's not really at the right angle for it to be that. So it looks like spider webs or something, but since we were up, he went out right away to check to see if he could see any big spider webs hanging off any of those things or anything, and we didn't see any. It's some sort of weird reflection. I just wanted to show it to you. It's pretty weird. Somebody said they thought they saw a face there when it stops, and I thought I did there for a minute, but then I didn't. I don't know. But we've had the ring for about 18 months, and it's never done anything unusual. So it doesn't just like ring for no reason. It's pretty reliable. Okay, so I was thinking about my ring because before you guys got here, the FedEx guy was trying to drop stuff off, and I was trying to catch him on the ring. Sorry to interrupt these two back there. Sorry. Hard to talk through a mask. So it's been a rough morning. How about you guys? Hard Monday. Well, for me, it's been hard because, you know, I've got that mammal allergy. And I work really hard to avoid those kind of things. And yesterday, my husband and a friend were working on the house, and we've always known there was a weird vent in our bedroom. We have an old house. And they did get in there and they found there was a pillow or something in there like blocking it. Wasn't a vent, it was actually just a hole between two rooms, like to let air travel. And somebody along the years had blocked it. And I didn't really think about it this morning. I saw that pillow and I reached down and picked it up and thought, what in the world is this? And I set it back down. And then within 5 minutes, I was screaming and crying at my husband. You can feel all sorry for him. He likes that if you do. But actually what it is he knows now. He's been around long enough. He knows that means I was exposed to mammal. And so picking up that pillow, whatever they had done to it over the years, I don't know, it could have been like a pillow that the cat used or that the dog used all the time or something like that. But just that small amount was a huge exposure of mammal to me this morning. So I did this morning have a really hard time keeping track of my thoughts as we went through class. So if you guys, if there's something I just totally skipped, ask about it, because the chances are I'm probably not going to think of it and get back to it. So my brain isn't quite working right. The mammal exposure gives you kind of that brain fog where you can't really connect things properly. So yell if I'm messing stuff up. I'm going to show you really important stuff today, of course. No, I'm just kidding. What we're going to start with, though, since my brain isn't thinking super great, we'll start by getting yours going. Let's see if we can, if I can find it. Oh, this is a good one. Admit everybody to our Zoom room. And then play our Kahoots. I thought that this was going to be one that you guys would know the answers to. I thought, well, we'll learn as we go. But as I look through it, wait, I think you guys are going to know the answers. It's going to be a real battle royale if we can get a pin. Okay, so let's try this Kahoot. It's still kind of loading. It's being slow. www.kahoot.it, and there's your game pin. Why do we not have music? We got something set up. Can't find it. Oh, I know it. There's so many outputs. That's the computer, isn't it? So for some reason, we can't hear the projector. I'll put it on this one. Okay, that's pretty good. I can help almost everybody, don't you? I get to start. Needed that sound. What is the Python program? Find that person. Push them into submission. Oh, almost. That one I figured you guys wouldn't know. It really was. I don't know why, because the first time I saw that question, I was like, nah, but it is. Isn't it? So I don't know, those developers were having a fun late night. What is the Python function to output data to the screen? You've done it. You haven't done very many. Find that slow person. Beautiful. Was our slow person right or wrong? Oh, look, we got a leader. It doesn't matter because they were so slow, they'll never get any points. What will the following code produce? This is where you say, darn, wish I would have gotten the Zoom session. This one is just waiting for everybody.
I don't think
Whoa.
everybody does do sexual. That was, but it's had a lot, I'm not in it.
You're not in it.
Oh, I'm not in that either. I just had to bring it.
Too slow, too slow. Okay, let's see. What will this code print? Pretty good, Gotham. Pretty good, pretty good. I think they show you that in chapter 1, but just real quick of your Python programming book. Whoa, Bronson recognized it though. Okay, what about this one? What will this code print? It's just in there. Good job. Good guessing. And do you notice how in this one they're using those single quotes instead of double? It seems like Python doesn't care, doesn't it? So it's like, nah, doesn't care. Single quotes, double quotes. As long as there's quotes around a string. They were busy watching that Monty Python movie. They were like, it's fine. We don't care. Holy Grail.
We are the knights who say.
What will the code print? So as you're seeing, if we multiply using a string, it'll print it multiple times. But if we multiply using a number, it will just do multiplication. Tim's on fire and winning. Which line of code would print 32? Very good. Tricked somebody with that one. That would print 5, wouldn't it? 3 plus 2. Oh, Tim's just staying up there. What will the following code print? Besides being far away, it's also pixelated. Like preparing you to be a programmer. There, good. Get everybody doing this stuff. What is a string? Very good. And last, what data type only returns true? Except for our last person. Good job. Now I still want to know if they were getting them wrong or not. I'm going to pull that spreadsheet just to check. Who was that last person and were they always getting it wrong? Okay, who was third? Somebody was like under the sea. Isaac. And?
Yeah.
Good job. Good Python skills. Python fundamental. Let's just get started. So let's see what we're going to do. Let's do some more. Okay, I am looking at Canvas and I have some items in week 3 I've got to complete so that I can see our new stuff. And then finally, I should be able to see week 5. So everybody got their exam done, high scores. I haven't graded your hands-on, but I will right away. And so this week we're going to focus more on Python. So we're going to stay away from our Prelude to Programming book, sort of. We'll refer to it a little bit because we want to write that sales supermarket sample program in Python. But that's really all we'll refer to that textbook for this week. So this week we're going to focus on Python, and there's a few things that we want to learn about it first. We have our little textbook. I have it here online, so it's okay if you don't have it with you, because we'll refer to it together today. So what I have is that Python Programming for the Absolute Beginner book. Not to say that you might be able to find a PDF of it online, but you might be able to find a PDF of it online were you to use your Google skills. Not that it would be legal or anything, but you might be able to find that $2 book online. Okay, so some of you might have already sneaked a peek at chapter 2. That's great. We're going to sneak a peek on it together here just because that's kind of where we are. And so we want to start out doing some things with Python. And I'm going to take you a little bit maybe off in some other directions than what the textbook does. But let's get started with our textbook. So the first thing I want to do is find that, let me get some people admitted here. We're going to have to start setting up some admission rules. You guys will have to tell them, you know, like if you're 5 minutes late, you just don't get in or something. I don't know what. So whenever we write Python programs, we call them scripts. We call them scripts because the Python interpreter reads the code that we've written and executes it as it reads it every single time. So we never have a compiler or any sort of background process read through our Python code to save it in any other version. Our Python code, our .py file, stays a .py file, and it's interpreted by the Python interpreter every time we go to run it. That's a really important point because that means Python is an interpreted programming language versus a compiled programming language. A compiled programming language is one that does have a background process occur that creates more machine language type code. It doesn't require a lot of conversion to be executed by the processor. So when we're working with Python, which is an interpreted language, not compiled, we have to have that little Python runtime available to us, that Python interpreter, anytime we want to run that code. So that's some overhead, right? We wouldn't need that if we had a truly compiled language. C++ compiles down to a binary that's going to run on Linux or a binary that's going to run on Windows or whatever operating system we're compiling that to. That C# code does not require an interpreter like that to run. So that means Python has a little bit more overhead. It also means that were we in a situation where every teeny tiny bit of performance mattered, that because I don't know, because this game is rendering such unbelievable graphics that we can't use 1 iota more of CPU power that we don't need to use, then Python's not our language, right? Because it's an interpreted language, it's going to use more processor overhead than a compiled language like C++. So just right off the bat, let's get that out of the way. Python, before we start, is not the best programming language in the world. There is not a best programming language in the world. You guys will run into a lot of people who have different opinions about that. But I can just say Python is a nice, easy to learn language, but it does require overhead because it's interpreted. So some of the other languages that are compiled might be a little harder to learn, might not be as fun to work with, but yet they could run faster in the long run. So we want to make sure we know about those kinds of things. Now, before I can write any Python code though, wasn't there some sort of tool that I had to use to write that code? How did you guys type your Python code when you did chapter 1? Do you remember what the name of that tool is called? Do you remember? It's been a week longer. Monty Python had something to do with it. And you know, sometimes I've had a really hard time remembering the name of it. So I'll just bring up the start menu and start typing Python. So I'm like, what is that thing? What is that thing? And I'm seeing the Python interpreter. And as I finally type the 8, I finally see the one I'm looking for, idle. So idle was the editor that you used in chapter 1 of your beginning programming book to type that Python code. Now we could type that Python code in anything. We could type it in Notepad, but Notepad wouldn't be able to run it for us because it doesn't have that connection to that Python interpreter. Idle has that connection to the Python interpreter. So as we type our code, we can run it and make sure it's right. Well, now I've got a whole bunch of options here. These are different versions, basically, of Python that have been installed on these computers. So we have lots of different options, but really, it looks to be mostly Python 3.7. So I see 2 different versions of idle there. I am not seeing from the description what the difference is, but I'm going to be safe and go to this one that says Python 3.7, because that's what all of the other Python things are on this computer. I want to make sure I'm using the right version. Now, when idle comes up, it is just a Python interpreter. So that's why I'm seeing all these greater than symbols.
Mine doesn't come up.
What's it do?
Mine just shows problems, yeah.
You don't have all those. Let's see what you got. Here's the same. Well, let's go find it then. Let's close out, because I want to find that newer version of idle. So notice how mine says that Python 3.7.5 up in the title bar. Let's go find yours. It's not showing up on your start menu.
That's just 3.8.5.
Oh, so you're way up there.
Oh, good.
Let's try to get all on the same one if we can.
3.1 looks just as common.
Let's open File Explorer. In File Explorer, I want to look at the C drive. And sometimes with Python in the older versions, they would just create a folder and they wouldn't necessarily put it in the program files folder. So that's what this old Python 2.7 stuff is. Do you guys still have some of that old? Let's not mess with it. It's real old. So let's look in the program files folder.
86 or just program files?
Just program files to start, but I'm not seeing it. So let's go back and go to program files x86. Are you seeing it there? I'm still not seeing it.
Can we just right click on the Python shell and just hit open file location?
Yeah.
No, it's in app data local programs.
Do I?
It's in app data local programs.
Oh, okay. So on your C drive, go into users and then your username. And do you see this app data folder? It's a hidden folder. So if you're not seeing it, we need to go to our view menu and check this box that shows hidden items. And then you should see it. Mine's still not seeing it. Oh, okay, it might be in all sorts of different places. Mine's actually in the Visual Studio folder. Yay. Let's use the other one and I'll get a hold of the help desk people And we'll have them organize us. Because it looks like it's just everywhere. So let's just use Python, the one that says idle Python GUI. And if we're close to the same version, we can do some things with it. This is giving me the old Python 2.7. What about you guys?
I'm still on 30.8.
Just all sorts of different ones. Let's just go install a new one. We got a mess. Let's fix it. Let's go to our Canvas course. And in our Canvas course, in our announcements, we have that install file for Python. Yeah, let's just all run that one and then we'll know we're all on the same version. So I'm going to download it and then run it.
That's the download that we have already. 3.11.
Yeah.
So we're just going to use 3.11.
We'll just use it for now. It's just a nice handy one we can all get to real fast. Okay, so I'm going to install for all users. You guys have probably done this at home. You should be able to say yes.
Where does 3.1 install to?
It should go into your users folder also.
Oh, okay.
Now let's check.
Just install it directly from my C drive, so.
Did it?
Not you,
I'm still stuck with 2.7. So just run whatever version you've got that's not 2.7. So I'm going to run this 3.7 because it's newer than that install file and it's just giving that thing a terrible time. Everybody got some idle they can run. Because really, we're not going to stick with idle for super long because if you've noticed, idle isn't necessarily the greatest editor. So I just want to try to kind of get around these problems for a little bit so that we can use idle for a little while so that you know about it, you know it's out here, you remember that it's the default editor. But then we're going to switch to something else where we won't have these kind of problems with Python. Okay, so let's create a new file. Whenever I create a Python code file, when I'm using idle, I have to actually say file new. Now, if I wanted to type Python code right here in this Python interactive editor, I could say print hello world. And when I press enter, it would print that out for me. It would run that code. So I'm working directly here with the Python interpreter. I'm in an interactive mode. When I type code, it remembers it and it runs it for me interactively as I enter it. But I'd like to save my code. I don't want to just have to retype the whole thing every single time. So I need to put it in a file. So I'm going to use the file menu and choose new file. Now, this is one of those things where you guys doing the chapter 1 on your own at home, the majority of people just did a great job at this. If you were one of the people that didn't catch that and kind of had your code stuck in the interpreter, that's okay. That's perfectly understandable. That's a really normal thing. but we want to make sure that we're putting our code in a file. So as soon as we create a new file, let's go ahead and save it. And for me, I'm going to go to my OneDrive, and I have a 120 folder. And I'm going to try to save my file as some sort of meaningful name. I'm going to create this as chapter 3, and I already have all this other chapter 3 stuff. I'm going to say that this is going to be initial chapter, this ought to drive you crazy, 2 material. What? Well, we're in chapter 3 of our Prelude to Programming book, but we're going to look at chapter 2 of that other book. So I'm going to mention them both. Now, one last thing. Right now, my save as type is set to .py. So if I press save, it should save that file as a .py file. Let's make sure it does. Oh, and it did. I have my .py. With some of the older versions of idle, like if you accidentally use that 2.7 version of idle, it will not add the .py. So you'll have to type that yourself. Even though it looks like it should, it won't. All right, so I've got idle working. I've got a file here that I'm ready to put some code into. So the code that I want to use is from our Python programming book. Let me try to get everything organized here a little bit so we can see it. So in chapter 2, the first thing they do to us is introduce this useless trivia program. And they tell us that we can do all sorts of things as long as we put strings within quotes. And we saw that we could use single quotes or double quotes from the Cahoots. So we're going to change our press any key to continue program that we left off with chapter 1 to include a giant game over display. This is kind of some ASCII art there, questionable, but we're going to try to print out that great big giant game over thing. So in my Python code file, I'm going to start out with some comments. And comments in Python start out with a pound sign or a hashtag. So when I write programs, I'm going to be kind of picky about comments that I have up at the top, my header comments. So first of all, with the name of the script, this was a terrible name. I'm going to say that it is chapter 2 Python programming code. Now the developer is going to be you. And our purpose will be to explore. Sometimes our comments won't be as good as what they would be in the real world. My phone is just going crazy. Now, whenever I'm working with Python, I could do comments in another way, and that's with 3, and I'll say 3 tick marks, that 3 single quotes. And there's a bunch of different ways to do it, but I'm going to do the 3 single quotes that are up at the top in the number line. So be the key to the left of the 1, that single quote, I'm going to do 3 of them. You see which key I mean? Beside the 1 key. Get mad at us. So let's not do those ones by the 1 key. Let's do the ones beside the enter key. Discord likes the ones besides the 1 key. So whenever I do 3 single quotes, I can do a block of comments. Ugh. Another one. And we could just keep going. So you can tell right away a few things. First of all, idle is color coding, right? I've got single line comments are being color coded in red. Block comments are being color coded in green. Overall, I get this wonderful Christmas feel. Right? Great, it's all happy. That won't happen if I'm not working with a .py file. So if my file gets created, like in the older version, like I was worrying about, and I don't put a .py, I'm not going to get the color coding. So if you're ever in a situation where idle is not color coding your code for you, check your file name, because it might just not realize it's a Python file. Okay, so we have some comments. We can see our different kinds of comments. Can you run it? Let's make sure we can run it. Shouldn't do anything yet, right? We just only have comments. But if I run it, I should see it come up in that Python shell and tell that it tried to do something. Looks good. So I didn't get any errors. That's great. Because boy, with Python, you can get errors really easy. So they want us to print this message, program game over 2.0. So that's our first line of code. Now in this line of code, they gave you double quotes and single quotes. So notice what's going to happen. Python's going to use the double quotes as a delimiter to say everything inside these double quotes is a string. So it's not even going to worry about those single quotes. It's just going to act like those are string characters and they shouldn't cause us any trouble. Let's make sure. Let's run it. We should see the output from that one line. Ah, there we go. Program game over 2.0. So notice how it just reproduced those single quotes. Now, if I put the whole string inside single quotes instead of double quotes, can it still handle it? It changed the color coding, didn't it? Now it's mad. Could I make those double? You're going to see there's only the one way we can get away with it. And we've got to have both types is the way.
Mine's not color coded anymore.
Is it not? So do file save as. And then just goes in. Yeah. All right. So as long as I don't use the same kind of quotes inside my string as outside, I'm okay. So I can use single quotes to delimit the entire string or double quotes, and that's pretty unusual. A lot of programming languages aren't that flexible. Let's make some errors. We just have this one line of code, so this is a great time to make some errors, right? Because you know now where the errors are on this one line of code. Let's get rid of this parenthesis. What happens? You're going to make typos like that. So let's try it now instead of later. Unexpected oof while parsing. What's that mean? What's a oof? An oof is not a oof, it's end of file. That means that it saw a parenthesis, and as it was reading through your code, it hit the end of the file before it found the closing parenthesis. So it's at how come I'm at the end of the file before I see something. So not super helpful. We have to do a lot of work on our own to figure out what it's talking about. I can see this red bar starts right here, so I know that's the problem area. But then I have to do a lot of analyzing on my own to figure out what's wrong. Say, oh, I'm missing that closing parenthesis, so I'll put it back in. And then when I run, I shouldn't have an error anymore. What if I am in that CIS101 class, and I just can hardly type the word print without making it uppercase. Notice it lost its color coding. Does that indicate anything? Yep, it doesn't know what that's going to be now. So I'll run it again, and it's going to say all sorts of red error messages. Print is not defined. So what should I do? Lowercase it. And then we'll see our color coding back. So Python is not going to be super helpful with your error messages. So you want to really pay attention while we're in class working with it, because when you're home alone, somehow these error messages take on a much more ominous tone. All right, next line they want us to print some other things. The word same within double quotes, then a comma. The word message within double quotes, then a comma. And then the words as before within double quotes. Let me try to increase my font size. Okay. All right, so let's run that. So we have two print statements. So we see our first print statement generates one line of print. Our second print statement generates one line of print. We can have commas between the different items that we want to print out, and Python will automatically put a space in between those items. Now, what if we format things this way? Just a bit bigger. So we kind of have the same sort of line of code, except that every time we hit a comma, we went to a new line to try to make it more readable to other people. Does that have any impact? My output down here? Not really. It still all prints out on the same line. So all of these are just options that we can use. Now I can also just leave a blank line in my code file if I want to, just to have some white space in there to make it easier to read. Now I'm going to do this next print statement. They want to print the word here, and then they have a comma, and then they have this setup end equal double quote space double quote. Now let's run that. So there's my here. That end equal thing didn't really do anything. It just added a space. So if I wanted to print out a space, that's how I could do it, with a double quote with a space in it. Last one. It is ... And then they want us to print. And this time, we're going to use 3 double quotes. I did single quotes. They want double quotes. And then within our print, we want to put this exactly the way it is here within the textbook. Let me see if I can copy it. It's not very easy to copy. And I'll show you how it mangles it. Not too bad. I'll send it to you in the chat. Now you'll have to copy and paste it from the chat. So we'll see how messed up it gets. Because I don't have it in a file or anything. You'll have to select it. Will it let you? See if you can, because you might not even be able to. I might have to make it like a game over file and send it to you. Will it let you select it?
Oh, you can't select it.
You can't select it.
I don't have access to the book.
Do what?
I don't have access to the book.
To the Zoom?
Or I have access to the Zoom, yeah, but I like.
Go to chat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, go to chat and Zoom. It'll let you select it.
It doesn't work from chat.
What does it do to it?
It's a long line.
Just a long one? Oh, darn. Okay, well, I'll put it in Notepad. That's what we needed to know. It still won't look perfect, that's for sure. Because it kind of mangles it. They don't have it saved as a beautiful thing, so that's all right. Tap. Okay, I'm gonna put that in the chat. Okay, just see if you can open it and paste it. You guys might have already typed it. What they're wanting us to see is that by using the 3 quotes, we can do a multi-line string. And it really is a big deal because most programming languages can't handle that sort of thing at all. So I'm going to go ahead and run mine so you can see how mangled it is. Run it. Now, it says I hit the end of file while parsing. Again, I don't have a closing parenthesis. And when I was putting this giant string thing in here, I was so worried about it, I didn't close my parenthesis for my print statement. So let me try that again. And then I see my kind of corrupted game over ASCII artist sort of thing. So we could fix that. And the book does a really good job of telling you guys that there were lots of programmers that spent many, many hours creating ASCII art like this because they would just do it with the character-based stuff. So you can try fiddling with that and getting it to say game over very nicely like it does in the book. But the main point for us is that we can use the multi-line strings. So as long as you've got a string that's more than one line, you had to use the 3 quotes. Okay. Fiddle with it.
No matter what I do, it just doesn't allow.
If you want some others, if you Google ASCII art, you can find tons of it and see if you can reproduce any of it. Some of these are like really huge. I don't want you to reproduce the Wikipedia globe or anything like that, but you could, because it's ASCII art.
No matter what I do, it's always invalid syntax.
What?
No matter what I do, it's always invalid syntax. I checked my code, but
You put your closing parenthesis at the end?
Yeah, but like even like when I first made a new project and like I would try to compile, nothing would run. Nothing is ran at all.
Oh, so where's your closing parenthesis? No. See, what we are is, we're in the Python stuff. We need a file. This is not a file.
It's not. Oh, crap.
You're in the interval. Select all that. Nope, not those top ones. No, so. See, right here where the 3 things are, you can copy from them on. Copy them.
So just copy this. Right here, paste it.
Now you're rid of it from here.
I got that small, I'm sorry.
Very top, very
Oh, yeah. These two.
After you save it.
There we go. Valid syntax.
So you want
what's running?
It just said analysis text.
So where is it saying your syntax is?
Looks like it says print.
So what's wrong with that? Is there something wrong with the statement above it? You're gonna have to do debugging like that, figure out what's wrong.
Yeah, true.
So what's wrong with the statement above it? There's nothing wrong with that one. Is there like missing this closing parenthesis?
This is the closing parentheses.
That would be a closing parenthesis. When it wasn't.
We don't want this to happen.
So that
Yeah,
was
I
wrong.
feel the same way about the text sometimes.
So what's
Can I
wrong?
use, I'm guessing.
Mine's a little bit long.
So maybe. There should be a comma there. There should be a comma there. I don't even care, but it could.
Probably loaded. Thank you.
Everybody else
Appreciate
working?
that.
Let me know if you're not. Okay, so you can find some ASCII art and you can try some Python practice with stuff. And it's pretty fun. I knew a lot of systems programmers that did a lot of ASCII art when they were, I don't know, tired. So like this one's cute. Look, it's even got movement. Fancy ASCII art. Okay, so in our book, they're ready for us to move on. And they have a lot of examples for you about all the different quotes and the quotes inside of a string and all the different values that we printed. So as you read through that, you'll see a little bit more information about that same kind of thing. Okay, so we have another program to write. We can create a new file in idle for this new program. Let's do that. That'll keep our stuff kind of organized. So I'm going to say File, New File, and I'm going to save. Now this new file, I'm going to name it Chapter 3 Initial Chapter, sorry it's so long, Chapter 2 Fancy Credits. We'll figure out a good way to name these things. So very, very long name, but a very short program. Yay. So this Fancy Credits program is going to show us how to print out this kind of output where they have slashes in it. And that doesn't seem like a big deal, but slashes are really important in file names and things like that. We see a lot of slashes. So oftentimes our programming languages can be very confused by forward slashes and backslashes. We call those escape sequences, the kind of code character that makes the system stop and think, do I need to do something else here? Is this what you want from me? So we're going to look at how they can be used. So I've got it saved. Let's do some comments. This script is going to be Fancy Credits. You are the developer. And our purpose is to experiment with escape sequences. And again, you can put some empty comments at the bottom or blank lines. Either one is fine. Okay, so in this program, we're going to start out with a print statement. And in our print statement, we're going to use the backslash character. And the backslash is the one above your enter key. So if you think about it, it's the one that's leaning back. The forward slash is the one that's beside your shift key. It's leaning forward. we want the backslash. So the leaning backslash, and then we want a letter T. And whenever we do that, a backslash T, we're telling the system to type a tab character. Now, as I do that, you can tell idle is trying to help me, and I'm having to fight with it a little bit to get what I want typed. But I want 3 backslash T's, and then I want it to say fancy credits. And then I'm going to close my parenthesis. So when I run this, then I'm going to get 3 tab characters that I won't really be able to see, but it'll move my cursor over. And then I'll get the words fancy credits over there, sort of towards the middle. Did it work? Now that backslash character, if you notice, can cause a lot of errors. So yell if it gave you any trouble, and we'll get it fixed. Now, the next thing that they want us to print is going to include some of those backslashes in the output. So they want us to do 3 tab characters, backslash T, backslash T, backslash T, then a backslash, so I have to have 2 of them, and I'll explain that, and then another backslash, so I need 2 of them, and another, and altogether they want 7 of them. 7 sets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. After the 7th set, you can close your double quote and close your parenthesis. Now, anytime I want to print out a backslash character, I have to use a backslash character to escape. So by putting a backslash character in, I'm saying, ignore the next character, treat it as a string, it's nothing special. So I'll run this, and I should see 7 individual backslashes output after my tabs. There they are. So under our fancy credits, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
So what would happen if you just put single backslashes instead of doubles?
Good question. Try it. I'll run it. It's like I've got some sort of error here because I have all these backslashes, but I'm not exactly sure what to do with them. So it knows that there's some sort of special character, but it doesn't know what to do with it.
Okay.
So we could put our second one back in there. We could also do that. I'll change this one in the middle to a double quote, and we can use an escape character like that to allow anything to print following this. So if I print this like this, where I have the double quote in the middle, that double quote should print out because it's got an escape character preceding it. So see how it gives me that double quote. So any special character like that that is meaningful somehow to the programming language, we can put a backslash in front of it, and then we're able to use it as though it's not a special character. Okay, so we've got a bunch of tabs printing and things. Let's do some more. On this next line, they want us to do 4 tabs, backslash T, backslash T, backslash T, backslash T. And then they want us to put the word by. So I'm going to put the word by, then close my double quotes and close my parentheses. Then we're going to put the author's name. So in this print statement, we're only going to do 3 tabs. And the author, Michael Dawson. Now let's run that. We should see our fancy credits, our backslashes, and then by Michael Dawson. Now they want us to follow the by Michael Dawson line with the line of backslashes again. So I'm going to copy that. So I'll select it and Control C and then Control V, just like anything else. So that's a hard one for you guys as you're starting out, because I don't want you to, I know you all know how to type. So make sure when you're programming, you're not doing a lot of typing practice, but yet don't copy and paste so much that you're not getting a chance to feel what it's like to type the code. So it's a very fine line. You have to be careful because we don't want to copy and paste too much, but yet we don't want to waste a lot of time. So let's run this now and I should see that same line after. Perfect. So one more, print. And this time they want our output to go to a new line, not just a tab. So I'm going to do a \n for a new line. And then I want the whole rest of the message, special thanks goes out to. Now, if you've ever seen an old typewriter, you know where the new line and the tab characters came from, because with an old typewriter, you did have to press the tab key and it would move the physical bar across the paper to where you were ready to type in a new location. But whenever you wanted to go to a new line, you had to press basically the enter key and that would take you down to a new line. So that's what the \n is doing for us, taking us down to a new line. The print command does that automatically, right? Because every time we've printed, it's ended up on a new line. So by putting a \n in, are we going to get a blank line between them? Let's see. Yep, we got a blank line here before our special thanks goes out to. So can you think of any other way we could have done that besides using that \n? Could we have just had a blank print statement? Yeah, we could have done that and that would have printed out a blank new line. Either way is fine. We just are looking at those escape sequences, so they wanted you to know about the new line escape sequence, the \n. Now, another line of print that they want us to have. My hair stylist, comma, Henry. Okay, now I'm going to do a \ as an escape sequence with a single quote. The great, period, \ single quote, who never says \ double quote, CAN, \ single quote, T, period, \ double quote, double quote. This is why I wanted to do this one together in case you hadn't noticed. Because if you guys are at home doing this and you make one typo, it's all messed up and you're thinking, no, this can't be right. Okay, so what are we going to end up with this one? It should say, my hairstylist, comma, Henry. Then we should see our single quotes around the great with the dot. Then, who never says, double quote, CAN, single quote, T, double quote. So the can't word should be surrounded by double quotes with the single quote inside of it. So we saw we could get away with a little bit of this without using escape sequences, but by using escape sequences, we know we're safe. So let's run it and see if we've got it. There it is, my hairstylist, Henry, the great, who never says can't. Now, normally we wouldn't do a lot of printing out of escape sequences like this. So these ones are extremely difficult. So try to get these all into your file because these are really good examples of something that we don't run into very often. I like our little book because it's trying to make sure we know how to do these things that are kind of gotcha things. So before you get into a spot where it's gotcha, they're like, I'll just go ahead and show you how to do it. Okay, so now let's sound the system bell. Let's see if that'll work. Sound the system bell. Print \A for alarm. And then let's just go ahead and put in our last line of code, input. And in our input statement, we're going to go to a new line and another new line. And then we're going to say press the enter key to exit. So this is like some seriously ugly code. Let's run it. I didn't hear my system alarm, did you? To try it at home and see if it does anything when it's not on the network, because some of those programmatic alarms they have disabled. Those networking guys. Let me see if it works at home. But at least it ran. Did everybody's run okay? I did get this weird special character out here that I assume is it trying to ding that bell. Get that special thingy there. Looking good. Now, in these programs that they've been showing us, we've just been, if you notice, we've just been doing top-down, right? Top-down programming. We start at the top and we work our way down towards the bottom. So we're not doing any sort of modules or sub-programs. You know, our Prelude to Programming book is really into those modules and things. So I wonder if we have enough information here to write one of our programs from our Prelude to Programming book. We have a lot more in chapter 2 of our beginning programming book, but I'd like to kind of veer off a little bit. They do show us how to do some nice math. So there's some great examples in here that we want to keep working with. And then they're going to show us how to use some variables. That's great. Let's skip to that section. So if you do have your book, I'm going to move down to page 31. If you don't, you just come with me and we'll move to page 31. Now, the 2 programs that we've written so far, I'm going to make sure they're saved.
Have some help or something in it?
Sure, what you need.
I accidentally wrote the sound the system bell code in another window, and I moved it over. I'm having some troubles integrating it over here.
Okay, share your screen so we can see what's going on. Find that green.
Okay.
Got it? I've got it. That looks right. What's it gripe at you about?
Well, it just, oh, what's this? Just something with the quotation marks having to use with.
So put your double quote back. Do you have 2 double quotes or just 1?
I think there was one double quote in this, but I can't remember.
We'll look at it because I sure can't see it. It's about font size of 4 there or something.
Oh, I see now. Wait, hold on. There we are. Okay. So,
Great.
Just like look at that one thing.
Awesome. We got it. That's what we want to do is just find out problems. Okay. So I've got everything saved. I'm going to close these 2 programs. But remember that you have them. And remember that they give you sample code of certain things. So if you're looking for sample code, you can find it. Now I want to create a new file. And to create a new file, I need to get back to idle, that interpreter. So I'm going to open back up my Python shell and choose File, New File. Let's save this file. And I'm going to give it a really long name again, chapter 3, initial, chapter 2, name variables. And that's a good name anyways, because that way you'll be able to find this program later if you need it. So this is going to be name variables. And let's just say we're going to show how to work with variables. Now, while you're getting all that in, let me tell you a little bit about what the book says for naming variables. We've talked about it a bit, but remember we have to use legal variable names, so we can't have spaces. You know, as soon as we put a space in a variable name, it just became 2 variable names, right? So we have to make sure our names are descriptive, consistent, follow the traditions of the language. So they mention Python traditions. So like Python, variable names usually start with a lowercase letter. Another tradition is to avoid using an underscore as the first character of your variable names. Names that begin with an underscore have a special meaning in Python. So we want to make sure that we're following the conventions of the language. So if you see me naming a variable starting with an uppercase letter, you have all the permission in the world to say, hey, lowercase, because I also code in C# all the time that wants it to be uppercase. So I can easily forget. And I would rather be following the conventions of the language like I like my students to do, because that's the language we're learning. Right? It's great to know other ones too. But anyways, we want to make sure that we're using Python rules. We want to keep the length in check. I like it in our book. They say personal underscore checking underscore account underscore balance is a great variable name, but it might be a little too long. Here's my favorite one. Let's see if I can show it to you. I think they've got it fixed a little bit. Leave student view. This is the inbox thing of Canvases. And if I want to send a message, I'll just show it to you. To pick the course, you pick from your courses. And our course names, if you notice, are also long, that they had to actually update the way this works so that they could get the last few letters in there too. So last semester when I looked at it, all of my intro to programming courses said exactly the same thing, because the differences didn't start in those names until so far out that they weren't relevant. So we want to make sure that we're not doing that kind of thing with our variable names. We want to make sure that they're meaningful. They're long enough to have meaning, but they're short enough to be usable. So we're also going to make sure that if we get in a mode of things, like we're always going to put the word 17 in front of these type variables, that we keep doing that. One thing they mention is self-documenting code. Self-documenting code doesn't exactly exist, but in theory, that would be code that's written in such a way that it's easy to understand. Choosing good variable names helps with that. Okay, let's start by getting some user input. Let's get somebody's name. This is going to look a lot like an assignment you have. So first of all, I'm going to start out with a variable named name. And I want to set up that variable by using an input statement. My input prompt is going to say the words, hi, what's your name? Oops, question mark. And then they want a space before the double quote. Now, after that, I can just print out the name that they enter. So let's try running this. So far, we'd only use the input statement as kind of the placeholder, right? To say press the enter key to continue. Now we're going to use the input statement to actually gather data, to gather our input. So in this example, we want to know what the person's name is. When we read the name, we're going to place that data into the variable name. Is it okay with that? Name is kind of a reserved word in Python. That's why it's not highlighted. Oops, run it. So down here at the bottom, I've got my prompt. Hi, what's your name? I'm going to type it in. And then when I press enter, it should redisplay for me. Can you see it? What'd it do? Nothing. Find your Python shell, because that's where it's showing it. Let's show me. One of you guys grab this screen here and let's see what's going on. Perfect, so let's run it. And scroll down a little bit. Is there something down there? No? Do you see something? Just type something and press enter and let's see if it does something. In your Python shell.
Oh, in the Python shell?
Yeah, type it in the Python shell and let's see. I don't know why you're not getting your prompt. It won't let you. So try to run your program again. I don't know why it's not doing anything. And so a bunch of you are doing the same thing? Someone else going to show us? We want to see this.
We're all three of us are just.
So what do you think we could try? There was something I said earlier that maybe we should try. What was that? Do you remember? I mentioned the variable name. That name was a reserved word. Should we try a different variable name other than name? Because you guys are on a different version of Python than me. So maybe that being a reserved word is causing trouble. Does that matter? If you change it to name, from name to something else, does that help? Let's make it be like name one. What about you guys back here? Same thing? You guys are all working? Come on up here and fix these guys then. Let's go. Come on, seriously. Let's go. What's going on? What's their problem? We gotta get this going, people. Come on, come on. If yours is working, come on up and help these people who aren't working. Let's figure out why, because I sure don't see it. We'll be here all day.
Oh, no, mine works. I have the same thing as it.
You're doing the same thing? No, yours is working. This is our front row. They probably got some weirdo version of Python installed. It's working for the most part.
Yeah, I just messed with it.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's that's just me.
Just you.
No,
Just you. Make sure.
Is it the period? No, mine has it. That's weird. Just try closing it out. And open it back.
That's a good idea. Oops, sorry. I heard good thoughts there. Lots of good thoughts. Everybody's thinking of things because that's what we're trying to do. One person said close it out and open it again. That's a really good thing to try. Anybody else got any ideas? Because that's really just what we need sometimes, are just ideas. We could even get to a point where we don't know what's happened with these computers. They could have just pushed a new version of Python down to them last night, and we might need to restart some of them. You know, so we just don't know what kind of weird, unusual things could cause us trouble. So that's why I always ask for help from everybody, because anything that we can think of is going to be better than thinking of nothing, or everybody waiting for me to think of something. But sometimes I can't think of it.
Okay, cool.
What was it?
Just exited out of all of Python.
And that redid it. Thank you, you guys, because I would have tried a billion things before I tried that. So I think that's so important. Now, remember, we have so much expertise in this room. So anything like that that you guys can think of, just yell out, because you have a lot of experience. And I value it. Okay, so we finally are printing out our name now. Let's add a little bit more. Let's print out the word hi with a comma and then the name. I've got to put my name variable back to name because I was grabbing for straws, huh? All right, let's run it. Am I sharing? Thanks. Okay, so now we should prompt for the name. Here's my name. And then I should see my name and then hi, my name. Is it working? So now we got a variable. Now they want us to go ahead and put in the print \n, press the enter key to exit. Now our Python programming book really likes that. This is kind of up to you. I'm not going to count off like if you forget it or something like that. I did on those very first ones just because we only had 2 lines of code. Let's try running it now. Okay, what is your name? Yay. So I've got my hello and press the enter key to exit thing. Awesome. Let's open Word. And you might want to use a different tool, that's fine. But I'd like to start a really specific to me Python quick reference, because I'm going to ask you later to look at Python resources. And once you do, you'll see there are Python materials all over the web. Textbooks, how to get started, online courses, but none of it is geared towards you, just what you need to know. So let's make a quick reference that is just ours. I'm going to double click up here in the heading to just put in Python quick reference. And then I'm just going to add a table. Now I know that the 101 class is a prerequisite or a co-requisite to this class. So help each other if there are people without a lot of word skills. But we just want a 2-column table. Whoops, I'm in the wrong place because I told you I have brain problems today. Let's insert a table. And I just want it to be 2 columns. So in my first column, I'm going to put something like that print statement. Print hello world. Now, this is one problem with using Word. I have to go change that uppercase P to lowercase because you know how Word is going to change it that first time to autocorrect for me. You could turn autocorrect off. You could do all sorts of things like that in Word, or you could just type it again as a lowercase and then Word will quit changing it. So my first line in my quick reference is just print. And I better put a closing parenthesis or I'm not going to have a very good example here. So underneath that, I could put print, open and close parenthesis. And over here, I will say this outputs an empty line. The first one outputs hello world. Now in your quick reference, I want you to put any sort of examples or things that you think will help you to remember things that are going to be meaningful. So for me, I'm good with just print, open and close parentheses, that I know that's how I use this print function. But you might want a little bit more here in your quick reference. So whatever you want, you can do that. Now, another thing that I might want to do is maybe I want to highlight things. So let's say I'm going to say that functions, like the word print, I'm going to highlight in this awful green. And then down here, I can put that somewhere and just say functions are in green. Now, if you wanted to get really color codey, you could use another color of a highlighter to highlight the string that goes inside the parenthesis, or to highlight the beginning and ending parenthesis, because you've got to have those. So think about what's going to be the most meaningful to you that you really want to emphasize here. We'll kind of create our own Python book. If you've noticed, they just start telling you stories. We just need some code. We want any stories. All right, so there's our print statement. We could put a lot more in there for that, right? Now, the other statement that we've learned is the input statement. The input statement we saw here is the input prompt. And again, I need that word input to be lowercase. And then I'll say that this prompts the user for input. Now, when I'm looking at this statement, the word input is my function. So if I'm going to highlight my functions in green, I can highlight that word input. Again, the input requires the opening, closing parentheses with the prompt information. Now, with an input statement, I might need to save the data that a user inputs. So I could say variable equals input. Keep getting a happy face there. So now user data will be stored in variable. So notice with that first syntax, if I don't specify a variable name, whatever the user types, it's just going to be thrown away. Bit bucket, right? Goes away. Because I didn't specify a variable name to save it. But as soon as I put a variable name in before the equal sign of the input statement, then that's where that data will be saved that the user types in. So instead of going to the bit bucket, it'll get saved in a variable. So we're ready now to write a program that's a little bit more involved. And the one I'm thinking of is our salesperson's commission that we did last week. Remember, we did that one together. We did our input process output chart, our hierarchy chart, then our pseudocode, and then we did a flow chart for it. So we've just done just about everything to this except for write it in Python. So if you remember, our inputs were the amount of sales and the commission rate. We multiplied the sales amount times the commission rate divided by 100 to make it a percentage, and that gave us the commission earned, and we output that commission earned. So let's do that same thing with a Python program. So I'm going to find my Python interpreter, and I'm going to open a new file. I'm going to save it. Chapter 3, sales commission, Python. Now, we had some subprograms for this. So we're going to subprogram it, have some different functions. It'll look a little different than some of the examples in your textbook. So let me say script, not program. Sales person's commission. So we're going to just calculate that commission amount. Now, if you remember, we had our input module, and our input module prompted the user for input. We had some variables too, and in our pseudocode, we declared our variables before we did any code. Let me bring up that pseudocode to show you. Too many places. So we had our variables all declared up at the top. And whenever we declare variables at the top like that of a program, those are global variables. So that means that we can use those variables in any subprogram within our program. So we're going to do that same thing with our Python code. So we're going to use the word global We're going to actually tell Python these are global variables. First of all, our sales amount is a global. Second, our commission earned and our commission rate. Now, with another programming language and with our pseudocode, we actually said what data type these are, float and integer. Whenever we're working with global variables in Python, we can't do that. All we can do is declare the name of the variable. So Python will figure out what the data type is when we actually start using it. But for us right now, yes, sir?
And they're not supposed to be capitalized at the beginning. I think.
Oh, thank you. Yep, I did it. Thank you. I copied right off that pseudocode. Let's fix all those because I'm getting bad habits to start.
Is the amount earned and rate, is that capitalized?
None of our variables should start with capital letters for Python.
Oh, no, sorry.
Yeah, he's calling me on it. Yay. That's exactly what I did because I was just following that silly pseudocode. Okay, so now we've got variables named like we should. And we're going to start with our input module. So whenever I'm working with Python and I want to say I have a module, I'm going to use the def keyword for define. And I'm going to say this is our input module. Now, there's some special rules there when I define a subprogram or a function in Python. First of all, that def keyword has to come first, followed by the module or function name. That's the name I'll use to call this thing. Next, I have parentheses, and as we go further along, we'll learn more about them. But for right now, we just have to have the open and closing parentheses, followed by a colon. Now, whenever I'm typing Python code, so far, we've just been typing it pretty much in column 1. And Python is actually columnar, it's column oriented. So now that I've typed that colon, when I press enter, idle's going to put me on my next line of code indented, because that colon kind of indicates to Python, this is the beginning of a section or a body of things. So my def statement says, this is the beginning of this function named input mod. All the code within the input mod function will be indented now. And so idle's just going to automatically indent for us like that. So for our input module then, we want to ask for the sales amount. Because I'm going to change the sales amount in this function, I have to put this global word again. And I got to use the lowercase letters. So when I'm working with Python and global variables, I have to declare them at the top, and then I have to repeat them in the function if they're going to get changed. So I'm going to change these both in this input function. So that's why I have to name them again. Okay, so let's change them. First of all, we need our sales for the month. So sales amount is going to be equal to our input function with a prompt that says, enter the sales for the month. And then our commission rate is going to be input with a prompt. What is the commission rate? So let's see if we can run this. I'm missing a little bit, but the first thing I want to do is make sure there's no errors. So I'm not going to expect any sort of output or input or anything. I'm just going to run it. and it comes back with the greater than symbol, so I know that I didn't have any errors. Well, how can I make it actually do something? Well, I can, down here in column 1, I can say run my input module. Now, I am defining my input module, and I'm also running it. Notice I can't run it until after I've defined it. Now I should see my question, enter the sales for the month. And what's the commission rate? Now they're squished right up there. What could I do about that? Let's do it. I'll put it in my input. And I might want a question mark or something nice there too, like a colon is a delineator for the user. Perfect. It looks like we've got everything going good, but there is one thing that we need to change. When we use the input statement, it assumes that what the user is going to type in is a string. It's going to be some sort of character data. And in our case, we really want this to be a number. So we have to cast what they type as an integer. And casting just means I'm going to take what this is, this string, and I'm going to cast it out to see if it's valid as a number. So we can do that a bunch of different ways. But for our input, it's common to just wrap the input function in the int function. And when I say wrap, I put the new function name at the beginning with an open parenthesis, and then I add a new closing parenthesis at the end. And then I've wrapped what I already had in this new function. So now I'm saying, give me the input based on this prompt, enter the sales for the month, convert that to an integer, and save it in the sales amount variable. Now, another way I could do it, we'll do it for the commission rate, is I could say commission rate equals int commission rate. And that would do the same thing. So sales amount, we're casting as an integer as its input. Commission rate, we're casting as an integer after its input. Now let's run and make sure they don't crash. What's going to happen at this point now, since we've said these are numbers, if we don't type numeric data, we're going to break our own program. Right now, we don't have any code in here to handle non-numeric data. So just type in good stuff. Now, I got no errors, but if I run it again and I type in something that's non-numeric, it's going to crash. Okay? So just type numeric stuff. Perfect. So we have our input module all done. The next module that we had for our pseudocode was our calc. So let's create it. I'm still indented. I'm still in this body mode. So I'm going to press backspace to back up to column 1, because I am now done with my input module. And I'm not going to back tab back to column 1 until I'm done. As soon as Python sees code starting in column 1, it knows this module is complete. Okay, so that spacing matters. All right, so let's start our next module, our calculation. In our calculation, we just needed the one line of code. Oh, but I need that global statement. I'm going to be updating the commission earned in this function. So I'm going to set commission earned equal to our sales amount times our commission rate I keep going to uppercase, sorry. Divided by 100. Now in our test area, I can go ahead and add in execution from my calc module just to make sure it's not canceling. But I'm not doing anything with it yet. I'm not going to see any output or anything from running it, but I will run it and make sure that it doesn't crash. $2,000, 20%, no crash, good. So now let's output that we calculated and make sure it's good. So our output module was called output mod. Let's create it. I'm going to leave a blank line and then back tab and do my def statement for my output mod. In my output module, I'm going to print commission for the month is, and then our commission earned. Now to actually get it to run, I'll put a call to it. And notice I don't have that word call when I'm using Python. I just put the name of the module and that calls it. Now this looks all good, but let's go ahead and put in our main module too. Def main. And then I want to indent all of these. Now be very careful to press tab. Don't space over because Python is super picky and will get really upset about spaces and tabs being all mixed up. Now that I put my main module in, I'll go down and call it. So notice we did not have to put the main module. We could have left these 3 calls down here at the bottom, but we wanted our main module to match our pseudocode and all of our code. So we can kind of almost read this backwards, can't we? If we look at our Python code, if I start at the end, which was a hard thing for me when I first started working with Python, I'm going to run the main. Here's my main. My main is going to run the input module, the calc, and the output module. And that's it, then it'll be done. So let's see if it works. What are the sales? I'll do 2,000. The commission rate, 20. 400. Looks like a good answer. So everybody's working?
Nope.
Yeah, mine's not.
Mine's not.
Why not?
Let's see. It says it's missing, let's see, trace back, most recent call last. It is not defined.
So look at where it's red and see what it's looking at.
Well, it outputs perfectly fine, but just there's no like errors on the screen.
Oh,
I'd be happy to screen share.
Okay. I think the guy behind you knows what to do. Were you telling him what to do?
No, I was looking.
Oh, okay. Go ahead and screen share. Let's see what you got.
I mean, I typed everything.
No, I still got it held. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, now try. And when you run it, what does it say?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. It just says this right here.
Okay, so it says something is not defined. What line is it saying that's on? Can you
Line
tell?
31.
You put it instead of INT.
Oh.
Instead of an output.
Oh, okay. All right.
Perfect.
Oh, okay.
Okay, who else?
Mine's still doing the same thing.
Yeah,
Both of ours are.
What's that?
it's not putting anything out.
Mine did it for a second.
Uh-huh.
I've run it 4 times
And then it just quit?
And I've restarted it.
You have, and it doesn't matter. Well, send it home. Let's see what it does at your computer at home. Because I have a feeling we need to restart those computers. What do you think? And I don't think that we have time.
Another error pops up, by the way.
It what?
On your commission rate, the input is supposed to be what is the commission rate? On your,
Yeah, I'm looking at your input line. So commission earned sales amount, that line?
that, on the input line.
Commission rate, oh
Yeah,
yeah.
commission rate and input.
Yeah.
On what it says, what is input rate, it's supposed to be what is the commission rate.
Oh.
That didn't matter too much. Okay, so we see, we just have a couple minutes left, so we can't fix everybody's problems. So be trying to debug your problems, try to help each other. Continue chapter 2 of that Python programming book. So before you come back on Wednesday, try to get through the rest of that chapter and be looking at that. You guys, listen to me, please. Stop debugging right now. All of you, thanks. I know it's so hard when you've got a good problem, but we're gonna run out of time. So for next time, chapter 2 of that Python programming book, try to go through the rest of it and look at that price per pound application that you guys did last week, that you did the pseudocode and the flowchart for. So next time when we come in, we're gonna solve problems and look at a couple of other things, but the majority of our time will be lab time to work on that program on your own to try to get that the per pound price thing working. So if you got it all done, you know what I mean? Well, you still have to come, because we might do something really cool that I hadn't thought of yet. Now we're going to try to do some Google Colab things so that we can use an editor outside of idle and do some sharing. And we might try you guys' code real fast and you don't have to run off. So good job, everybody. Lots of Python code. I know it's hard when we go quickly and then slow down and wait forever while we're getting things fixed, but we'll get it. So try those in chapter 2 and I'll see you next time. Let's see if we can figure it out. Oh, yeah. Okay.
So I guess we're gonna go.
So yeah.
So my first thing is,
And I want you to look at telling me how to so we can create
so room rack, she-
and then
I got a Christian County Medical Center. I'm looking at the 15 patients. Looking at college jobs. Setting up computer networks and calling people. People out from the game.
like, you were just-
and then create account.
Condition during.
Right there, use my search. You see how I already have that option. We went to the Gmail one, isn't that? Yeah, use your
Good morning, sir. Got my phone.
my current.
Hey, Ms. Roderick.
Uh-huh.
I think you've had
Yeah.
an accent.
Oh,
I thought it looked weird to begin with, and then I was like, oh, no, it's good.
Yeah.
Are you putting in?
And then put in the password.
Like after commission rate.
Or you don't need a password.
Oh, I got there.
I think all you need is your next and your OTC account, because I think if you do anything else, no, you're okay, you do need a password. I'm like, it's gonna create a Gmail, but it's not. Go ahead and put in your password. You guys will be my experimental person here. I appreciate it. Verify your email.
Should be able to get it from the school.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I gotta work on it.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's not too busy.
Be all right.
Sometimes like I'll get there and like I'll have to, like normally we need it like 12 to 1.
just before that, like after
I
commission,
hope you
just like
don't mind,
stop.
just like, you know, I've done it at home, but then I'm never sure what it's gonna.
He didn't give me an
force you
error, now
guys
it's giving
to
me an
do.
error, so I can't tell if that's progress.
Like, I don't want some stuff.
Anything,
You should
go
just
wrong.
be
You
able
don't have
to-
to go wrong.
Yeah.
Spaces and dots.
He's a 17, both my kids are born in the 17. That's not in May, we can do the May, and like January and after.
Like being paid to make books.
Now,
For a while.
Is that like?
what I want from you is click new, and under new,
They don't
go
do
down
that
to more,
now, do they?
No.
and under more, go to connect.
But
with
they,
app.
a lot of people do keep like. They
We are
do
looking
a
for
certain amount each month.
COLA, C-O-L-A-B.
Updated, like add.
Oh.
Stuff, that type of stuff.
That's a possibility. I don't know.
I'll think so. I'm just gonna cross that bridge when I get to it. Yes.
That's good. Yep. Now you should be able to do new COLA. Now, right where you are, you can type Python code. So let's paste your code.
Kansas scripts.
So just copy the whole thing, yeah.
Right.
And then click that little play button to run it.
Copies get it down here.
Control C and then Control V. Yeah, anything you put in is fine. Okay, so we are good.
Like first, like
There
up
it
here.
is. Yeah, try your play button there. It takes it kind of a second. Okay, main is not defined. So here we've got lowercase name. So just make it the same. That's why I listened to it. That's why I spent the whole weekend looking for something else to use. Now you see why. Isn't that frustrating? Because yeah, you should have gotten something. We should have seen something and we're not seeing
Okay,
anything.
then just click on it.
Okay, yeah, try this again. Okay, now put in your sales for, so now you do have and the sales for the month, so type something in like 2,000.
Still not.
And now put in your commission rate like 20. And so now it's saying that I got to the cow. Cow is not defined.
Yes.
So try to run it again. Bring up sales. So let's see.
Commission rate.
So this one should be commission rate up here. And you can just change it here in Colab and then copy it back either way. Because this is the editor. It's the full editor and everything. No, here should be commission earned. That first one should be. Right.
So set that up, commission rate.
Does he seems more user friendly.
doesn't it?
Yeah.
And that's why I was trying to get us to where we could get to it today, but we just couldn't.
There.
When I fought with it all weekend, you know, I was really torn between not using idle at all today, because I'll show you the one that I have.
It's also frustrating that we didn't get the same version.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's got the same version. That's why I was saying I wasn't gonna worry too much about the computers being a little different. Let me show you the one I created if I can get to it. I gotta get logged on. Do you guys think it looks okay? You can tell what's going on there?
Oh, yeah, from the lab.
Yeah. Oh, good, okay, because I think it is, but just sometimes, you know.
It might be confusing that the colors are changed in it.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the one that I did.
Yeah.
So see how you can do like sections. So like our game over program from chapter 2 is there. And you can roll up the sections. So like here's our fancy credits program. And then our salesperson's commission. I got a link to our flow chart and our pseudocode, because you can put all sorts of different kinds of things into these notebooks. And then you can actually create completely different code blocks for the different functions. So it'll make it easy. And then the great thing is you should be able to share. Can we try that? Can you share with them? And you should be able to actually, it's like a Google Doc. You guys can both type code at the same time. Everything he was sharing up there was like this big, and I was like, I don't know.
Yeah, I tried to Zoom it.
It's just not very friendly.
Yeah.
Sorry, you haven't encountered, what's it say? It says something different. Click send again. Exceeded your sharing quota.
Shared it.
What? Oh, did we just find the error with the problem with Colab? Well, I would much rather.
Wait, hold on. It might be because I made it with all of these in. But if that's the problem, then that's kind of.
See if you can share yours. Because I mean, I was trying to figure out where the gotcha was. We might have found it.
This is, oh, AH 0859
859.
392.
Nope.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then I know we can't do that.
That's just,
Doesn't it? So
Send people.
log off your OTC account and log on your regular Gmail and see if it does the same thing to you.
All right, so
I actually don't remember my
I can log on to mine.
Oops.
I can share with you guys without any problem. But that's not the idea I wanted. I bet it's just because you guys have new accounts, because it says like signed out and signed back in, it started working. So it might be that we could share it after your account is more established.
I have to get, yeah.
Let's just wait, because I don't want you guys to waste any more time with it. I bet it's just because they're new accounts. But that means everybody's gonna run into that same thing. So I really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
here's what it gives me for,
I'm having
once
trouble
I
just
sign up
signing.
my own thing.
Second, it's your old one, yeah. Because I don't want you to have to fight with it too much. We'll just try after you've gotten off and we've given it a little time, we'll see if it'll let you share. Because I know I can share with the class, but that's not really, I wanted people in their individual study groups to be able to share with each other too, so.
I can talk to one Discord and see if it works out at home.
Oh, okay, that'd be awesome.
And I'll
Yeah,
let you know
see,
if you want.
because I have a feeling it's because they're brand new accounts. So if it's not brand new accounts, it's gonna be because OTC doesn't have you guys Google accounts. Or it looks like it just could be a collab problem too, because there's a lot of reports of it out there, so. Cool, I really think this will work good for us if we could get it going, because you can use it on any computer that's got the internet, you know, and you don't have to worry about. Yeah, you could use it on your phone, and it's just a lot more flexible. But I was like, I just hate for people to not have to fight with idle a little bit. They'll just forget about it completely, and they'll be like, I couldn't get to the internet, so I couldn't write any Python code. No,
I
I'm
might
writing
be
stuff
able to
in it.
try and see if I can send something to him from my phone.
I think it's super cool.
I'm kind of excited about the Code Academy thing,
Mhm.
because, when I was still in high school, which was last year.
You did it forever ago.
Yeah.
It was a whole lifetime ago this year. You guys really know how to blow it, make it to where the whole world is different after you're done.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't get the same senior year, but, you know.
Uh-huh.
Oh, to make sure I want to do coding or anything like that, because my dad was in IT for a while, for a decent amount of time.
Mhm.
He never wanted to do coding, but he sort of just fell into it by accident, by working for some hippies. And then, so we were looking around for sites to try and have like classes online, whatever, just for some simple stuff. And Code Academy was one of them. I liked Code Academy because it helped you learn. It helped you a bunch of other stuff, except Unity. I don't like Unity.
You don't like Unity?
Oh, their stuff crashes all the time.
It's super crashy.
You know.
It's not that bad.
I mean, if you can get it to go, yeah, but I've had to like uninstall it and then install the whole thing several times for it to get to work. Unreal might be better.
What were you looking at as far as doing training with Unity?
I forget what we did, but there was like some online classes from Unity itself. I think, maybe.
Because some of their
And then
classes
maybe
are really
stuff to do,
awful.
but that's some of the stuff.
Yeah, I like their classes because it really makes people be willing to pay others.
Yeah.
No, they're not that bad. It's just getting started with Unity is really hard.
Yeah.
And then once you've got it's kind of like this first getting started with Python. If you could just have somebody help you get started on your computer, usually everybody would be okay.
Yeah.
It's the getting started thing.
So it's okay that it's not running on the shell?
Do what?
It's okay that our
Things
code
are
isn't
running on
running
shell.
on the shell?
Yes. We'll figure out what's going on with it. You guys might have to use Colab next time too, because I don't want you to fight with idle.
Yeah.
You want me to let you know, Colab for?
Yeah, anything you guys can find out.
I'll message
It's
you.
wonderful to know.
All right.
There are lots of other web-based sites where we can write Python code. I just like the Colab one because we can put all our stuff together in one nice notebook and keep it all, you know, without having, because it seems like sometimes in this class, I like to write a lot of code samples. And so people end up with all these files everywhere. And I like the idea of the collaboratory notebook, bringing it all together to where it's easier to find stuff.
Yeah.
All that, so better work. Stupid, probably because we don't have students set up on Google. I hope not. We'll have fun now.
All right, good.
Thanks, you guys. Do what?
Have a good night. I have to go find some food and kill time until 4.
Yeah.
Are we supposed to try Pro for free?
Do what?
Are we supposed to try Pro for free on the Code Academy?
Just the free one.
Just the free?
Yeah, and I didn't really get to talk to you about it. The free one is Python 2.7, so it's the earlier release. So when you use the print statement, the print function, you don't use parentheses. So that's the only big difference. But it's a big difference.
I mean, like, so I got done with 4:15, but
Oh, I'm telling you stuff you've already figured out way back.
it's like,
Yeah, so go back to the only freebie. And it's the old version. It's like, are you seriously gonna take this free one? And we're like, yes, yes, we are. We're gonna take this free one.